Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Empath Sisters. I'm Shelly.
Hi, I'm Bev.
And I don't know if you watched the last episode or not, but I had a chance to talk about gratitude and my outer body experience. And if you didn't,
Mhm.
go back because it is quite a
Yes,
story.
yes, it was.
But
It was.
yeah, it was. And it was exciting to share that with all of you. But
Mhm.
today, we are going
Mhm.
to dab a little bit into Bev's journey and her story a little bit. So we're just going to go for it and hand it over to you, Bev.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of talk about my journey a little bit and how that started for me. And, as I was saying in my introduction, just how, as I was growing up, I've been always very open, been able to see spirit. I always felt like I was really connected, felt really different. And even though I had mentioned in my intro that my dad always had tried to kind of like shut that down, but that just never went away. And life just kind of continued on for me. And you know, I still had experiences, things still happened. All throughout my life. And
Mm-hmm.
basically, I felt like it was until like 2012, just kind of like when my sister was talking last episode about her out of body experience. That's kind of like when things really happened. And she did mention in that episode that we had lost our dad at that time too, and it was a tough year for us.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It definitely was.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it was tough. It was the 2012 was a big year. So if
It
any of
was.
any yeah anybody that knows us, basically 2012 was like our year. And and so basically, if I go back to 2012, that's kind of when everything changed for me as well, and just started me on my spiritual journey again. I really dove back into it when my sister had her collapse in 2012 in January, and then in February, our dad had experienced some heart attacks and some strokes, unfortunately, and put him in the hospital and that sort of thing. And so when our dad had passed away, that was really hard for me. I, yeah, I think it was probably one of the hardest things I had ever experienced in my life. I've never experienced losing somebody really close to me. I have
Right.
never experienced that.
Yeah.
And just the whole experience of being in the hospital and just decisions that we had to make, things like that. It was just a really tough time. My sister had just had her collapse. She had just gotten
Yeah.
home. And so it just felt like a very overwhelming time.
Oh, definitely,
Um,
for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, like I agree with you. Totally overwhelming, even for myself. And like you just said, like I just
yeah,
had my collapse, and
yeah.
here I had to make a decision
Hmm.
for dad. And I
Yeah,
remember thinking, oh my gosh, like I need to talk to my siblings. And
yeah,
yeah, it was very difficult. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. It was very difficult. I don't wish that upon anybody to ever have to make those kind of decisions
No.
um, for your loved ones or your parents or anything like that about making decisions at the hospital, So it was just a really tough time. And we all kind of just tried to stick together and help each other just, as best as we could.
Yeah.
So once, um, once my dad had passed away, I like I was saying, it was really hard for me. I experienced, I think, grief for sure, and anger. I would say anger was another emotion that I felt at the time. And I was just really angry because our dad was an alcoholic, and that was his addiction. And that's been a life that I know with my dad. And so I've, I always knew that my dad wasn't going to be here forever. And I always felt like I just wanted to try to spend as much time with him as possible or try to maintain some type of a relationship with my dad. It was like a knowing that I had. And, I always tried to help my dad as well with his addiction. And but it was tough. My dad never really looked at it like he had a problem. So I offered to take him to AA. And as you know, our parents are deaf and we speak sign language. And I said, like, I'll take you, I'll interpret for you. Like I was willing to be his support. But he just kept saying, he
Not
didn't
for
have a
me.
problem.
No.
Not for me. So I went to great lengths in other areas to try to get my dad the support um, towards the end of his life, but it just didn't work out. Um, so yeah, so it just was really hard. And before my dad had passed, I hadn't talked to him really for about 2 years. I had made a decision at that point in my life to kind of block my dad out of my life, and I just couldn't deal with his addiction anymore. It was really tough for me.
Yeah.
I had young children and I was married, and I just made that decision. It was probably one of the toughest decisions I've ever made in my life. And so then I get this phone call, dad's had heart attacks and strokes. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it was just a whole big shock for me. So I didn't really, my dad was in the hospital here in Saskatoon for just a couple of days before he passed. And so I really didn't get to, you know, I always envision like movies and stuff where you go and see
Yeah.
your loved one at the hospital, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And there's like this beautiful goodbye. And I never got that. And my dad, our dad, sorry, had a hard time talking because of the strokes and communicating with us and that sort of thing. So that just, maybe he wanted to, I don't know, but it didn't happen through any of the communicating that we had had. So when my dad had passed, I just really felt angry. I felt ripped off. I was 30 years old at the time, and I just felt like I was really young to have lost my dad. And I also was really angry that, I just wasn't going to see him anymore. I wasn't going to be here in the physical. I wasn't going to get those phone calls anymore and that sort of thing. I wasn't going to see his grandkids grow up. And so that was part of the anger. And the other part of it for me was just that I think I just really didn't understand addiction. Because I think about myself as a parent, I think like, I love my kids. And not that I don't think my dad loved us, but I looked at it at the time where I was like, I love my kids and I would do anything for my kids. And at that time, I really struggled with the thought and feeling of that we weren't good enough, or maybe I wasn't good enough, that just we weren't good enough, that he could just quit the addiction and that we could have just been a happy family. And so I struggled with that for sure after my dad had passed. And so it kind of, his passing really took me into my spiritual journey again. Because I had known I could see spirit, I could communicate all of these things. And I was like, but okay. And since he was the closest person I'd ever lost ever, I was like, how does this work? Where did he go? What is he doing? When can I see him? Like, what the heck? So, I just, and I don't know, did you feel that way too, Shal? Like when dad had passed? Like,
I have to say that it was a little bit different for me because like you said, like we grew up this way. We knew that dad was an alcoholic for pretty much most of our lives. And so, and like maybe this might sound rude or insensitive or what have you, but it was for me, I kind of blocked that out for years. So like I was like you, I took breaks from dad. Like I didn't talk to him for a couple years here and there because I couldn't take it. I couldn't take the alcohol, right? And how he was. And I didn't want my kids, same thing, didn't want my kids to see this of him as hard as it was, because I was like you. I was close to dad and he was close to me. And so it was difficult. But I always knew, I guess, just because of his alcoholism, that one day we were going to lose him. I just didn't know when. I knew it was going to happen one day. I just didn't expect it to happen, obviously, after my incident. That didn't help.
No.
So for me, I actually didn't grieve because I was in so much like my own stuff. And then it happened with him. I literally didn't grieve until probably about 5 years ago. I started to actually be like, oh my God, like my dad is not here no more in the physical world. And I went through the same thing as you. I was angry. I mean, I was angry lots of times growing up too. Like, why can't he just stop? Why can't he just do this? You know, like we did have these conversations, you know? And
Absolutely.
like, doesn't he love us enough to just stop? Like,
Yeah.
many times. I do remember those times.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, I went through a lot of, I would have to say shock probably. Like, it
Yeah.
just, I didn't have that, like, oh my God, like, I mean, I did, but I didn't. I don't
Yeah.
really even remember crying at the funeral, like, nothing, because
Yeah.
I was just so, like, this is actually happening. Like,
Yeah.
so it was really different for me. But at the same time, I do feel like now, because of all the things that have happened in
Mm-hmm.
and my grieving too, uh,
Yeah.
I'm in a better place for sure
Yeah.
with him.
Yeah. 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 Me too.
So, um,
Yeah. It's still always hard, even though it's been a long time already. I think like sometimes they just those feelings come back and they're so raw. And
oh,
then
for sure.
sometimes so many days I'm so good. And then just I find it really hard for me because I did grieve at the very beginning. I
Yes.
grieved I would say the first 5 years was really tough for
Oh,
me,
for sure. Yes.
grieving.
Like, it was
And
almost like the opposite.
I
Like,
know I felt like
you
we kind of
grieved.
swapped.
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt really good finally, and I was getting signs and everything.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was
Absolutely.
like, I felt like, and then you just started your grieving at that
Right.
point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's just been, yeah. And I find it's just kind of like been this roller coaster
Oh,
ride.
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
feel like, grieving will be a forever thing. And I always
Yeah.
say like, it does get easier.
It
Um,
does. But like,
but
I was
it's,
told one day that, like, when I was
mhm,
going through my whole collapse, and I
yeah.
spoke to a friend, and she gave me the best quote, I guess. And she
Mhm,
just said, grief is like waves. They come
yeah.
in and they come out. And it
Yeah.
is like that. It can just come in, and then you're stuck
Totally.
with these grieving feelings and emotions, and then there's times where, yeah, the tide is out and you're like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm past that
Yeah.
now. And then one
Totally.
little thing happens and then it just comes back in. So that's one
Totally.
thing I've always, had that stuck with me, that just like you saying, like, it's an up and down thing. And yeah, I
Totally.
totally relate. It's like that. And like, there are days where I can talk about dad and
Yeah.
not worry about it. And then there's
Yeah.
days where, like today, like, we're talking about him and I started to tear up, and it's like, what's going on? But,
Yeah.
but
Totally.
I do get that. So, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I would say for anybody else out there that has lost a loved one close to you or has grieved,
Hmm.
that, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Grieving does come in waves.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many years go by. Um, just, I
And
guess when it strikes you,
yeah,
like it's
and to
okay.
remember, and yeah, and remember that when it does come, let those
Mhm.
emotions come to the
Yeah.
surface. If you're mad, be mad. If you need to cry, cry. Don't hold those
Yeah.
things in, because that's what
No.
we need to release. And that's
Yeah.
part of grieving. So
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
to be, like Bev
Don't
said, be kind to
suppress.
yourself. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't suppress the emotions as much as I know it's easier said than done for sure.
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm guilty of it too. There's
Mm-hmm.
many times I just suppress it.
Yeah.
And then sometimes just like, what, it's okay. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
human.
Yeah,
This is normal. I have these emotions. I just need to let them go.
for
So
sure. For
it's,
sure. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So I
anyway.
feel like, you know, through that time, I was going through my grieving. I wanted to know where dad was. I missed him so much. And I was just like, I want to see him. I want to know, where is he? What is he doing?
Yeah,
And that really, and maybe that's just part of my grieving, that I just needed to put my focus onto something that I felt like I could do,
for sure.
to make myself feel better. And so yeah, I really dove into like spirituality books and like books about heaven and on the other side. And I think I even read like, oh yeah, Sylvia Brown books and, just things like that, and just really dove in. And I remember just sitting and reading every day. Like I felt like it just consumed my life at the time. And I really connected with my guides again. I was asking for that relationship with them to work with me and to show me things, or I wanted to know so much. And
So, question, Bev, I don't mean to
yeah.
interrupt, but like you were
Mhm.
saying, you were asking your spirit guides to show you and talking to them. But
Yeah.
at that moment, like when you were doing all that, like what made you, like, how did you even know to connect with them to show you? Do you know what I mean? Like, how could you
Yeah,
explain that to someone that maybe wants to try that themselves?
for
How did
sure.
you do that?
For sure. Well, everybody's got spirit guides.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, as a seer, I've always known, seen, and felt a
Mm-hmm.
team with me. I've
Right.
seen angels, I've seen my guides, I can see other people's guides, I've seen spirits. Um, and so it was almost like, because life was so busy and so much was happening, I really didn't feel like I knew they were there, but I didn't really connect with them like I am connected with my team right now.
Right. Okay.
It's almost like that knowing of like, yeah, somebody's looking out for me. If something happens in my life, oh, they looked out for me, or yeah, somebody's always got my back, or, when you're just kind of asking in the air. I think everybody does that. We're just like, come on, can you just please,
Yeah,
could you
I'm
just make this
sure that a lot
happen?
of us do that.
Totally. Right. And maybe over and over, a couple times, and so like, I kind of had that kind of a relationship, but
Okay.
I really felt when I dove in, I don't know. Honestly, it just felt like I felt somewhere inside me that I knew that they could help me. If I just
Okay.
spoke to them and I asked them if they could help me with this, show me things, grant me permission to maybe learn about, where dad is or the other side or anything like that, that I would be so grateful.
Okay.
Um, and that's kind of when my guides really started to like come forward.
Okay.
And we started like a working relationship, is basically what I would call it.
Okay.
Um, so once I had done all of that, I felt like I had just become exhausted. I just felt like, oh, okay, like I can't read anymore. I felt like I just consumed myself of everything and anything. And so I kind of just put everything aside, and I just felt like done. I just felt really full of knowledge and information. And I just went, I'm done. I'm going to take a break. And
Right.
at that point, once I had taken a break, a girlfriend of mine actually reached out to me, and she told me that she was had invited a medium to come up from Regina, Saskatchewan, up to Saskatoon, and she was going to be in her home, and she was going to do a bunch of readings. And she asked if I wanted to take a slot, and I was like, yeah, I've always gone for readings
Yeah.
my whole life, so it's something I love to dabble into, and from the time that my dad had passed to the time that I went for that reading, um, I hadn't had a visit from my dad. We hadn't had a connection or anything. So I just thought, okay. And I'd never seen a medium. So I really didn't even know what a medium was. I just thought
Yeah.
she was a psychic. I was going to go for a reading.
Right.
Didn't
Yeah, because
really know
we've
what to
always seen
expect.
psychics, but
Yeah,
nobody that,
never had,
yeah.
never gone for mediumship
No,
ever. Cause
no.
like I said, I've never lost anybody,
Mm-hmm.
a loved
That you
one,
needed to
and
do that.
totally.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
honestly, I don't even know if I even knew that that was a thing, that people did that, honestly.
Okay.
And so I was like, yeah, I'll take a spot. And so I was super excited. And the day had come. And I remember that day so clearly because we were kind of like, we lived out of town. We still do, actually. We live out of the city. And at that time we were kind of going back and forth. Our kids were younger at the time, of course. And so they were in different activities. And so it was a lot of like driving back and forth from the city back home. And I remember being at home. Chris had taken the kids into the city for something. And I was at home by myself, and I was kind of getting ready to head over to my girlfriend's house for this reading. And I remember going upstairs, coming downstairs, and I come into the kitchen, and then there would be a nickel. And I'd be like, it's really weird. It just like caught my attention. And I
Yeah.
was like, pretty sure that like I just cleaned the kitchen. So I really don't, I just thought that was so odd that there was a nickel there all of a sudden. So whatever, I just grabbed it, I put it aside, and then I continued to do my thing. And I was probably cleaning and doing whatever. And then came back into the kitchen again. And all of a sudden now on the other counter, there's a quarter. And I'm like, hey, what the heck? Like, this is just so bizarre. Like, okay, first I got a nickel. Now I have a quarter. This is really, it was starting to get a little weird to me. So whatever, I put it by the nickel and I just left it there. And I remember going into the laundry room, trying to do my thing. And I looked at the time and I was like, oh, okay, I've got like, half an hour. I should get going. And then I couldn't find my keys. So then I start looking around the house and I'm thinking, what the heck? Like, it just seems so weird to me that all of a sudden weird things were happening all at this moment. And so as I'm walking around the house looking for my keys, I go back into the kitchen, and on the counter, on a different counter, there was a dime and there was my keys. And I went, oh, what the heck? Like, thank goodness my keys, so I can get going. But then I was like, now there's a dime. And I was thinking, so weird. So
But pretty
did
cool
not,
though.
so cool. Now that
Yeah,
I know what that
I
all
know. Yeah.
means. At the time I was thinking like, is this a joke? Am I dreaming? Am I even alive today? Like, what's happening? This is so weird. Yeah, so bizarre. So head over to my girlfriend's house, waiting my turn. And I remember just sitting up in the living room. The medium was downstairs, and finally it was my turn, and I was so excited. And I was like, yes, okay. So I go down the stairs. Sorry, and she's sitting on the one end of the couch, and I sit down and I said, hello, and she says hi, and she goes, there was just a man that followed you down the stairs. And I was literally like, and I was so excited because I was thinking, it has to be my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start sitting there doing the reading, and she starts telling me, oh, he's telling me, that's my daughter. That's my daughter. That's my
And
daughter.
that's exactly what he would say.
Totally. He always would say that. That's
Yeah,
my daughter.
that's mine.
And he was like almost really proud. Like,
Yeah.
those are mine. So that right away, I was like, it's got to be dad, because that's totally something he would say, right?
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so, so then she starts. I remember talking to my sister. I remember talking to you prior to that, I think, and you asked, you should find out if he's still deaf on the other side.
Yeah. Well, we weren't sure. So we were like, because,
Like,
the talk of everybody saying, like, when you go to heaven, you're no sick, you're not this. So I was like, why don't you ask?
is he deaf? Right. So I remember hearing that in my mind after she had said, oh, he's saying, that's my daughter. And I was thinking in my mind, oh, yeah, I wonder if, Shelley wants to know if he's still deaf. So I said, well, my sister wants to know because our dad was deaf when he was living here. Is he still deaf? And she said to me, like, our dad was communicating to her
Right.
that, he's like, no, he can hear. He can
Yeah.
hear. Of course I can hear, he goes. And so I just started to laugh because I was thinking, well, I thought so, but just wanted to know. But it was just so cool. And she just gave me, so much information. It was the most amazing experience. And I always say to my clients or to anybody is that, that moment that I had literally changed my life. And it healed me in a way that I can't even describe to people
No.
at all. And
Yeah.
and I know I could have never, ever gotten that in therapy, like going to see a counselor. I don't think I could have gotten that. I think I would have got probably some help for sure,
Yeah.
dealing with the grieving part and everything that, I'd been through.
Yeah.
But to actually have that meet with my dad and have him communicate words to me that I literally had longed to hear from him.
Yeah.
Just as I was saying back at the beginning when my dad was in the hospital, just longing for the, like, I'm sorry, I love you, all of that stuff that would have just, I think, made me feel so much better.
Yeah.
I got that in my reading. She described my dad to a T, how he looked with his white hair. It was like shaved down.
Yeah. Which,
He was
by the
wearing a
way,
yellow shirt.
our dad had white hair from the age of starting like 17 years old. Like it started going
Yeah.
gray then. So a lot of
Yeah.
people would say, oh, your grandpa is here. And we're like, no,
Yeah.
that's our dad.
Yeah.
Oh,
Pure white hair his whole life, the poor guy.
yeah.
So yeah, that's how he looked. He was wearing a yellow shirt with a pocket, which our dad's favorite color is yellow.
Yeah.
And he always had a pocket. He always wore shirts with pockets because he always had a notepad and a pen in
That's
case he
right.
ever needed to, like,
Talk to people.
communicate to somebody.
Yeah.
So she described him to a T, and she had passed along messages from my dad that, he had said that he was sorry. He was sorry for, that we couldn't have been a family. And that just, and he told me that he always loved my mom. And that was just like something I had known as well. And it was so healing. It was just so amazing. I had one of our uncles had come through, our uncle Jack, who had passed away before our dad had passed.
Yeah.
And he also had come through. So it was just an amazing experience. And I remember sitting there looking at that medium, and it just came to me. And I was just like, I'm like her. I am like that. I can do this. I have gifts just like her. And I was thinking, you know what? Just how it made me feel in that moment, it was, I want to do that for people. I want to help people like that. And I want to maybe bring some healing to them. And so that's kind of how my journey started. And, but I remember thinking, well, how do I do that?
Yeah.
So I just like set up a table and go, okay, I'm going to do readings, but I don't really even know, how do you make these spirits come forward? How does this work? I really, at that point, it was like that. I think there was that missing puzzle piece of like, okay, now I know there's spirits. I know I've seen them and all of that, but it's like, how does that happen with just somebody else? How does their loved one come
So
forward?
then what did you do? How did you go on that and learn about how
Yeah,
to bring spirits forward?
totally. So from there, that's kind of what I asked my guides for at that time. I
Yeah.
just said, okay, I need to know how this works. Like, this is what I want to do. How does this work? How do I help people? How do spirits come forward? How do I make these meets happen? How do I be that medium?
Yeah.
And honest to goodness, it was probably a week later from seeing dad. Um, in my travels, so at night, I travel every
Yeah.
night. I'm like conscious all the time. I could tell you where I was yesterday,
Yeah.
what plane I went to, what I did, who I saw. It's like living in two different places every single day for me. And so in a week later in one of my travels, I was on one of the planes, and all of a sudden I was in my home on the other side. So it wasn't like my home that I have here in the physical world.
Right.
And all of a sudden, as I just turned around, my spirit guide was standing right in front of me. And she was beautiful. It was just the most amazing, like, oh my gosh. That's kind of like when you're in the presence of somebody, it's just like, oh. And so she had come forward to me and she had said to me, I've been granted a very short amount of time to show you what you've been longing to know about the other side. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And she just said, take my hand. And I took her hand, and we didn't really go anywhere physically.
Right.
We
But you
just,
did mentally, basically.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
totally. And it was just like, I remember like as if my eyes were closed, it was like a movie screen. And it was just like slides and slides and slides. And it was just like, and it was so fast. And there was so much information. I just even remember now thinking, oh my gosh, that was so incredible that it was literally probably maybe 2 minutes. I don't even think it was that long, but there was so much information that I had received in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were done, she let go of my hand, and I just said, wait, so like, how do I see my dad? And she said to me, she said to me, whenever you want to see your dad, just ask and he'll come. And she left. And I remember going, okay, just ask, he'll come. Just ask, he'll come. And I did have an amazing experience after that of asking my dad to come forward, and he did. I probably could, share that on another episode for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, I had come back And the knowledge that I had received, I was like, okay, now it was like, I have this information. I know I have these gifts. How do I make this into something? It
Yeah.
felt like now there was something missing. Like, how do I make this work? And about a week later, I believe, after I had that meet with her, I was sitting in my living room and I was all by myself. And this may sound crazy, but it's okay. I've accepted that it can
I'm
sound
pretty
really
sure
crazy.
that nobody will think that. It's all good.
Maybe. Um, I was sitting in my living room and I was sitting in our red chair all by myself. I love just sitting and having quiet time.
Hmm.
And out of nowhere, I hear over here beside my ear, I hear, "You need Reiki." And I was like, what? Who said that? And what is Reiki? I
Hmm.
don't even know what that is. So I just thought, okay, that was weird. So the first thing I did is I turned over to the side of the couch. I grabbed my cell phone and I Googled Reiki, Saskatoon. No idea. And so I started reading about Reiki and about energy and all of this. And I was like, what? Didn't even make sense to me. I was like, I don't even know what this is. And I was really drawn to the third listing because it kind of like brought up a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
And so I was really drawn to the third listing. And I was like, okay. So I just clicked on it and kind of went to her website, I guess, and was reading about stuff. And nope, still didn't like nothing happened. I was like, I don't know. So I just emailed her. And I remember emailing her going, hi, I don't even know what this is. I think I might need it. I'm not really sure. I'm sure she laughed at it because I know I get those kind of messages now. And I just think it's super sweet. And so she replied and she just said, okay, no problem. She didn't even really explain it, which I understand why.
Yeah.
And so she just said, okay, so we set up an appointment and it was for the Saturday. It was a couple days later. I did not tell my family I was going because I thought, oh, for sure they're going to think I'm crazy. So I just went to this appointment on my own. I was super excited. I came into Saskatoon. I get to her place, get to the door, ring the doorbell, and I'm just waiting. I'm all excited. And she opens the door. And I was like, it was that moment again where I just looked at her and I went, oh my gosh, she looked just like my spirit guide. And I went, oh my God. And at that moment, I was like, okay, I knew I was in the right place at the right time. And for some reason, I was supposed to be there.
Hmm.
And
It's so
yeah,
amazing, though.
it was so awesome. And that was my first Reiki experience that I had with her. And it was incredible. It was amazing. And at that time, my fibro was really bad. I had fibromyalgia
Hmm.
and I was still trying to manage it. And so I just thought, these sessions could be so good for me and just to help me heal and to help me with my body and emotions and just anything that kind of was going on. I just felt because I'm one for alternative healing. I love trying different things. So
Yes, and we
I
have tried a lot of things.
have. I know I have. I've tried many things. And actually, as part of my self care routine now, I still
Hmm.
do many of those things every single month as
Yeah.
like my own maintenance and my own self care. So yeah, at the time it was amazing. I went for a couple of sessions and kind of was thinking to myself, I love this and I love the experiences and how I was feeling and how I just felt I was moving forward. And so I just thought to myself, maybe I want to like learn Reiki. Maybe I would just take like level one and just work on myself. I thought, well, I could just do my own healing at home too, and maybe work on the kids or whatever. And so I reached out to her and she said, yeah, no, we can definitely do that. And she said, level two is more at a practitioner level so that you would work with other people. And I was like,
Right.
oh no. At that time I went, no, that's okay. I just for myself. And so it was kind of just left at that. And I remember a couple of weeks later, she reached out to me and said that she was offering a level one and a two. And she really felt like she wanted to reach out to me and offer it. And I was like, okay. So then I just, basically had to sit down with her and we went over it. And I was like, something at that moment just told me this is that missing piece for you. This is how you can help people. And
Right.
I went, okay. And well, of course, I think I'm like everybody else too, where we want to do something, but we question it, we second guess it, we want to do it.
Yep.
We're like, should I? Shouldn't I? There's that talk that goes on. You feel it, but this stops you a lot of the times.
Well, I
Uh,
think a lot of that too is just what we talk about too is our ego, right? Like it just
for
says,
sure.
well, why would you want to do that? What is it
Yeah.
like? Doesn't
You can't
understand,
do
right?
that.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's that fighting back and forth. So,
Totally. It's a constant battle. It's
yeah, every day.
exhausting every day. And I just, yeah, so I talked to my husband about it at the time. I talked to my sister about it. I was kind
Yep.
of like, hey, and everybody was like, yeah, you should do it if this is what you feel you should do. And I was like, okay. And this was later in fall. I think it was about October, November at the time. And usually, my husband doesn't usually work a lot in winter because he works in construction. So I just thought, maybe this isn't good timing. It was pricey and I had a hard time spending money on myself. So I was like, I don't know, Christmas is coming. So, I really contemplated, did the battling over and over. And I remember messaging the lady and just saying, hey, when's the last day I can tell you my answer? So she gives me the date and I'm like, okay, good. So still did the battling. And that last day, I was sitting again in my living room by myself and struggling that morning. Okay, I got to make a decision. So I messaged her and I said, what's the latest time I can tell you today that I'm going to join? And I'm sure she was probably like, oh my God. I was like, I'm so sorry. And she said, noon. And I went, okay, noon. Got till noon. So I put my phone
Oh my
down.
God. I'm sorry. I just think it's funny because you were like, just,
Yeah.
asking when's the last time? When's the,
Oh,
like, when, da 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 da. And it was
like
like,
over and over.
and I can
I'm
only,
sure she
like,
was like,
I'm
I don't want to
laughing.
help you anymore.
Well, I'm poor thinking because, like, it's almost like it showed me, like, even your spirit guides, like, now, like, at the time, they were probably
Oh,
like, God, like,
oh, they still do it. They're just like,
sorry.
they
Oh,
get so annoyed. I know. I'm so sorry. Um, it's really bad. It was really bad then. I've learned over the years to trust. And it's
yeah,
a lot easier now for me. But at that time, that was like a really big thing.
deal.
It was
Yeah.
just like a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I had kind of like tried different things at the time. So I just felt like people are going to think, ah, Nash onto this. But yeah, so I just went, okay, noon, shoot. I don't have much time. I had my cell phone on the chair again. And I literally put it down and I just went, okay. And I said it out loud. I just said, okay, but this is what I'm supposed to do. But this is part of my purpose. And I'm supposed to take this course. And this is going to help me. This is part of my purpose. Then, like, I need a sign and I need it right now. And at that moment, when I said right now, all the power in my house went off. It was almost like in the old cartoons or movies when there's like that big power
That,
metal
like,
thing, that bar, and you just
yeah, like on, on, like, Christmas Vacation when they, like, he does that hole and they're like, yeah, the generator.
totally. That's exactly the image that I had in my mind when the power shut down, because that's exactly what it sounded like. It was just like somebody just grabbed it and went, and it was like off, and it was right there again.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. I couldn't believe how in that moment that I just literally asked and then stopped talking, that happened. And then all the power came back on. And all of a sudden my phone, it just lit up and it was 11:11. And I went, okay, I'm doing this. So I messaged her and I said, I'm in. And you know what? I've never looked back. And this is basically, that was the start of my entire journey of being a spiritual mentor and how mediumship came together, my psychic abilities, the healing work. Just, yeah, it all just came together and it was just
Yeah.
amazing. It was
It is
amazing.
amazing how it works and how it just falls into place and like you
Yeah.
said, and like you said earlier, you have to learn to trust too that that's what they're giving you, those
Oh,
signs,
tearing.
those, what's that?
I said I'm tearing. It's like
Oh.
it's a special moment.
I was just gonna say, I'm gonna warn you, pre-warn you. You probably noticed already, and even in this episode, I'm a crier, so I will probably cry quite a bit in these episodes. But
Yeah.
yeah, it gets, like Bev said, like you get emotional over it because you remember that moment, and you remember how it falls into place and how your journey starts.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, it's
So
definitely
powerful.
amazing. Yeah, for sure,
Yeah. Like
absolutely,
it's
and
just to know now, then, like even in the moment, it was like, whoa,
yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
now I'm like, wow, like
Right.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Kind of
You know, it's a
like what we
different
were talking about
feeling.
last episode, like about gratitude. It's almost like you change your perspective on
Totally.
how it happened to now, like
Yeah.
where you've come, how far you've come in your journey,
Yeah.
really, right?
Oh, for
So
sure.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I
It's
think
so
it's
cool.
cool.
I think so too. And that's why we wanted to do this
Yeah.
podcasting and YouTubing and just sharing our stories and
Mhm.
talking about things and just, I just, yeah, I just want to show like we're real people living real lives.
Yeah.
We're,
And you know
and
what? And not even just that. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's just
no, it's
they're
fine.
telling me also to say like that maybe some of you out there are feeling like, "Oh my gosh, like this is what's happening to me." Like you don't even
Hmm.
know it. And to feel like it's okay. This is happening. It is happening, and
Hmm.
that I don't want to say it like in a negative way or anything like that, but it is normal when you people like us that have these abilities, it is
Yeah.
normal. So when you
Yeah.
find your people, it's amazing because then you
Oh,
feel like you belong.
yeah, totally. It's so, so nice to find
Yes,
like-minded people. And it's just
absolutely.
to know that we're all normal in our own way. There is
Yeah,
really no normal. We are all meant to be different people. We're all meant to
right.
be our own special person. We're all
Yeah.
different and we're not meant to be alike. And
No,
so
because if we were, we really would be boring. Like honestly, we would. We would just be
we would
like
be like
robotic. Yeah.
robots. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
I know.
How boring would life be?
Yeah.
We were just all the same and everything was the same every day. Like I think Groundhog Day. Oh, just
Oh my
watching that
God.
movie sometimes I'm like,
I can't.
okay.
I'm sorry. I am not a big fan of that movie just because I can't handle it. I just can't
Oh,
have that. Oh, repetitive
repetitive.
stuff. Oh,
Yeah.
just
So just you got to just be yourself
yeah,
and yeah, if this and this is what it's meant to be is like if it resonates with you, if you've had some of these experiences, um, those experiences are normal. It
yeah.
doesn't make you weird. It doesn't make you,
No,
like, and I hate the word like different. It's like I just feel gifted
yeah,
as opposed to different.
yeah.
I do know I'm different and I feel okay saying I feel differently. I felt
Hmm.
differently most of my life.
Me too.
Um, but
Yeah,
I look at it now like I have gifts and I can't get rid of them no
right.
matter what.
Yeah. Well,
It's
no,
just
obviously we can't.
no, I can't. So, I might as well use them for good things
Yeah, for
and
sure.
try to help people. So it's so I consider them gifts. And I think anybody that wants to tap into that and explore it or anything like that, I think it's just amazing. And
Yeah.
I would hope that you wouldn't be afraid to
Well,
open
and
up and be
yeah, and
yourself
to
or
like
share.
feel reach or like feel
Yeah.
to reach out or ask questions or
Yeah,
whatever,
for sure.
or find your community too.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. They really are. They just are, some of them are afraid
Talk
to
about
show
it.
you or talk about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because
Yeah.
we were the same way. I mean, like there was other factors in that too, but for sure. So there are
Yeah.
people out there that will gladly listen. So
Oh, yeah. It's
mhm.
almost like if you went to a foreign country
Yeah,
and you were the only person that spoke English and nobody else there, and you're just like frustrated and you can't communicate
hmm,
and you don't know where to go, you don't know what to do. But you speak this language. And
Yeah.
then you're just like going through these crowds of people. And then all of a sudden you find one person that speaks English. And I would be
Yeah.
like, and that's literally what it feels like. My soul is like so
Yeah. Oh,
happy because
totally. Yeah.
it's like it's a feeling thing again, where it's like, you speak my language. Like we get
Mhm.
each other. We understand.
Yeah.
It's like this unspoken thing, and it's just
Yeah.
sad, And
Mhm.
so I don't know. I always try to encourage people to step into their light and not
Yeah.
be afraid to express and share and
Right.
talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, for
Yeah. So
sure.
that is
That's so
how
cool.
my
Well,
journey started.
well, thanks
So,
for sharing that. It was
yeah.
great. It was a good story. I love listening to it. So,
Yeah, well, thanks for listening. I hope you all enjoyed my story today too. And so we're probably going to wrap up here. And we just want to let you know that on our next coming episodes, we are going to be talking about signs, signs from the other side,
I'm so excited.
from loved ones. I know we are very excited. It's probably going to
Yeah,
be a two-parter,
probably.
just
Yeah.
because I was telling Shelly earlier, I was like, I could probably literally write a book on all the signs that I've had over the
Yeah,
years.
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
we want to share a couple of them with you
Yeah.
guys. So
Yeah.
that's
So
what's coming
we're
on
I'm
our next
super
episode.
excited. I'm looking forward to um doing that with you, and
Yes, me too.
I can't wait because like we even have stories like that are joint. So
Yes, yes,
there's lots of stuff that we could talk about on science for sure. So
yeah,
but yeah, thanks for tuning
yes.
in with the
Thank
Empath
you.
Sisters today, sending you love, light, and gratitude wherever
Yeah,
this may find you.
yes. Take care. Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you so much.